All right, so today we're going to be going over central ideas and details questions from the information and ideas question domain. Okay, so what are central idea and details questions? So basically, they either ask you to identify the main idea of a passage or they're going to ask you specific details about the topic. And the details ones are usually a little simpler because what they're asking you for is usually explicitly like written in the text. But people mainly struggle with identifying main ideas because they get caught up in small details. Because these are small passages, right? So it's not always clear what the overarching main idea is compared to a longer passage where they might be going back to the main idea like over and over again more clearly. So people do get caught up in like smaller, unimportant details. So today we're going to work on looking at the big picture of these smaller passages. So some strategies before we get into some practice is always ask yourself once you've read it, like, what is your major takeaway from this passage? I like to think about it as like if I had to summarize this passage to a friend in like one sentence, what would I say, right? Because in just one sentence, I can't repeat the entire passage again, right? So just see what are the main points you're retaining in that summary, that one sentence summary of the passage. Again, treat it like you're skimming the passage. I read somewhere, I think Erica Meltzer said it. The College Board is testing your college level reading skills, right? So in college, if you have a long textbook reading, you're not going to be able to get hung up on every small detail. So almost treat it like you're skimming the passage. Don't get hung up on every single sentence and every single word. Just try to get the main idea by skimming the passage. And Erica Meltzer in her book, the way she highlights this strategy is kind of identifying the main topic first, right? So what and or who is the author discussing, right? Because the main topic should definitely be in the answer choice. What she frames it as what idea is being repeated over and over again in different ways. And I'll illuminate this a little more like once we get into actual practice. But again, always identify the main topic. And sometimes this is a little deceiving because they might be using something as an example to illustrate the main topic. So it's important that you identify what the main topic is and don't get distracted by something else the passage is talking about. Um, Lastly, a really common one that you guys probably heard before is like look at the beginning and the end of a passage. And often this will kind of state like the main idea of the passage, not all the time, but at least at the conclusion, it will give you kind of like a wrap up, like what maybe the researchers found out or what was the point of all this? You know, why are we explaining all of this? So either at the beginning or the end, there will be at least a strong hint as to what the main idea is, if not explicitly stated because sometimes the stuff in the middle is just like elaborating on the main idea stated in the beginning. Again, not always, but always go to the beginning and the end if you kind of need some help. You need a hint when you're stuck. All right, lastly, keep in mind, try to picture everything, like make a mental movie of everything you read, even like the science passages in your head. Kind of like a mini documentary, honestly. It's going to help you stay connected with the text and kind of understand what you're reading a little more. And again, like I said, you don't have to understand every word. Don't let confusing words that you don't know or kind of complicated sentences psych you out and distract you. Your point is to get the big picture. All right, so we're going to start our practice now. As a reminder, for each of these practice questions, just pause and like try them on your own first before I kind of reveal my answers because that is the best way to practice. We're going to go over 10 questions total today. Okay, this is our first one, so I'll read it out loud. Bicycles were first mass-produced in the late 19th century throughout Europe and North America, allowing individuals remarkable freedom to travel longer distances quickly and comfortably. This freedom, coupled with the affordability of the vehicle, made the bicycle immensely popular. Okay, quick recap. So bicycles let people travel a lot more freely, and they were kind of cheap. Okay. Individuals were able to live farther from their workplaces, easily visit neighboring towns, and participate in new leisure and sport activities. Bicycling quickly became a popular social endeavor, with enthusiasts forming local cycling clubs to enjoy these newfound activities with others. Okay, so if I had to come up with a main idea, there are a lot of details that are presented to us in this passage, right? We learn a lot about bicycles and like all the things that people can do with them. They can go to workplaces, towns, they can do more sport activities, they can do more social stuff, they can do new activities, it's cheap. These are all small details. So if I had to kind of summarize this entire thing in maybe one sentence, I could say bikes got really popular because people could get around easily, and now they could do a lot of stuff, right? So this main idea doesn't state every single little thing that you can do with the bicycle, but it just gets the overall point, right? Like they can do all these new things because of the bicycle. And that's pretty much all you need to do. That's the main idea. Because they are easy to use and they're cheap, now you can do all sorts of new sorts of activities, right? So we don't have to get every little detail. I didn't have to read every single word and line of that passage to kind of get this overall point. Okay, so now let's go to the answer choices, keeping this main idea in mind. So maybe think about it. What do you think is the right answer? And the right answer is A. So, the widespread adoption of the bicycle in the late 19th century provided new opportunities for people. Well, that sounds pretty close to what I said, right? Because so many people could got bikes because they got really popular, provided new opportunities for people. Pretty much the same thing as saying now they could do a lot of stuff, right? And that's pretty much a quick and easy summary of what we read. Now, again, the other answer choices are wrong for a reason, so let's go over them. B, the affordability of the bicycle in the late 19th century made it the preferred way to travel. It is affordable, but we don't know if it's the preferred way to travel. That means people choose it over planes and trains and whatever. We don't know if it's the absolute preferred way to travel, so that's kind of incorrect. The popularity of the bicycle in the late 19th century gave rise to the first cycling clubs. That's true, right? In the last sentence, we say that enthusiasts formed local cycling clubs to socialize. That's a true statement, right? But that's not the main idea. The main idea is to show that all the different things that you can do with the bicycle, not just this one thing. Cycling clubs are just one aspect of it. So it's not a main idea, it's just a tiny little detail. And the last one, the mass production of the bicycle in the late 19th century made it safer for people to use. Well, it may be safer. It doesn't actually really talk about that in the text. The word safe isn't even used once. It does say quickly and comfortably, so maybe that means safer, but we don't know that for sure. And that's definitely not the main idea. The point is to show all the different things that you can do with the bicycle. So again, that's also never stated and it's not relevant. So that's why A is going to be the correct answer. So let's read the little blurb. So the following text is from her novel, Five Children in It. Five young siblings have just moved with their parents from London to a house in the countryside that they call the White House. It was not really a pretty house at all. It was quite ordinary, and Mother thought it was rather inconvenient, and was quite annoyed at there being no shelves to speak of and hardly a cupboard in the place. Father used to say that the ironwork on the roof and coping was like an architect's nightmare. Okay, so these parents are not a really big fan of this new house. But the house was deep in the country, with no other house in sight, and the children had been in London for 2 years, without so much as once going to the seaside even for a day by an excursion train. And so the White House seemed to them a sort of fairy palace set down in an earthly paradise. Okay, so we have a lot of details about this house and the children's opinion, and also a little bit about like where they're coming from, like the city in London. But again, what's the main topic? I see that there's definitely a contrast between the parents who don't like it for some reasons. I don't really know what coping really means. Um, yeah, I don't really know what coping means. I'm not sure what his problem was with the ironwork, but that doesn't really matter. All I need to know is that the parents are just not a really big fan of this house. And then in the second part, we see, because of whatever their background, the children kind of seem like very enchanted with this house, right? It's like a fairy palace in an earthly paradise. So I don't really need to grasp all of this background information just to say that, okay, they like this house a lot more than their parents, right? So my main idea is just going to sort of be like a summary. If I had to summarize it to someone else, I'd just be like, the parents don't really like this new house, but the kids think it's like magical. I'm not stating the reasons why they don't like it in that um, main idea, because that wouldn't be a summary then. The overall summary is just that they like it, the kids do. Okay. So now what answer choice best matches up with the main idea? Take a second and think about it. The answer here is A, again, I think. So, although their parents believe the house has several drawbacks, the children are enchanted by it. It's pretty much what I said, just a little more wordier. So, again, it's not stating every single reason that the parents, and it's not stating every single drawback. It's just saying that the parents kind of see some shortcomings with the house and that the children are enchanted by it. So, that's just pretty much a very simple summary. Again, the other answer choices are wrong, so let's go over them. The children don't like the house nearly as much as their parents do. Well, that's just straight up wrong. They really do like it. Um, each member of the family admires a different characteristic of the house. Well, no, not really. The parents don't even like it, and the children, we don't see what each individual one likes, so that's also really wrong. D, the house is beautiful and well built, but the children miss their old home in London. Also probably wrong because the children seem pretty excited about this house. It doesn't sound like they were very excited about where they lived before, because I guess they didn't really get out of the house much. So that's also really just has no support from the text. So A is don't be afraid to choose it because it seems like the simplest one. It's just a simple summary of our fiction passage. Scrapbooks of saved fabric pieces were commonly kept by women in 19th century United States, but few are as meticulously detailed as Hannah's work. Alongside each piece of fabric, she recorded intimate memories, such as dressmaking with her sister. Additionally, she listed the prices and how she used the fabric. Historians note that by representing 50 years of changing textures, patterns, and dress styles, the scrapbook is a record of 19th century textiles and dressmaking, as well as her life. Okay, so our main topic here is both like scrapbooks of fabric and this woman named Hannah. So it looks like she had a really detailed scrapbook that she recorded intimate moments, but also like a lot of stuff about like fabric and prices, textures, patterns, dress styles. So again, if I had to summarize this to another friend, I wouldn't remember all these details. Maybe I would just say, yeah, this girl Hannah, she had a really detailed scrapbook back in the day, and historians can learn a lot about like the history of dressmaking and also about her life. Here, I think the beginning and end method works pretty well because the last sentence kind of is sort of our main idea. Historians note that by representing all the stuff, the scrapbook is a record of like history and her life. So, my main idea would be something like that. This woman had a super detailed scrapbook, and we can learn about her life and fashion history over 50 years. I guess 50 years is also sort of a small detail, but whatever. This is maybe how I would summarize the whole thing if I was trying to remember it to one of my friends. Okay, so now let's see which answer choice best matches that up. Okay, so here choice D is the best one. So her scrapbook provides a detailed account of her life and historical record of fashion trends in 19th century United States. That's pretty much it, right? It's pretty much like a summary of the last sentence. It's pretty much what we said about her life and about sort of the history of fashion in this time period that she grew up. Now let's go over the other answer choices. So, C, fabric scrapbooks were a popular hobby for many women. That's true. That's a true detail, but is that the main topic about how popular the scrapbooks were? Or is the main topic Hannah's scrapbook specifically? I would say the topic is her scrapbook specifically, right? It's not talking about scrapbooks in general. We're talking about how special this one scrapbook was. B, historians rely on fabric scrapbooks to understand how fashion changed throughout 19th century United States. This one might be a tempting option because, yeah, like here in this passage, the historians are looking at her scrapbook, but we don't know if they rely on scrapbooks in general. We don't know if scrapbooks are like a main source of information. We know Hannah's scrapbook is a main source of information, but we don't know if like every woman's scrapbook is like really important. So this is a very broad generalization, but we cannot know that because we only have a lot of details on Hannah's scrapbook. So we don't know how much historians really need these scrapbooks because rely is sort of like an extreme word here. So we don't know if they rely on a lot of scrapbooks, but we do know that they like Hannah's. So that's why this one is sort of a stretch. An A, she inspired other women to save pieces of fabric, blah, blah, blah. I already know that's wrong because we don't know if she inspired any other women. That doesn't even come up. So that's why D is the best answer. Again, B might be tempting. B is incorrect because the topic is not about fabric scrapbooks in general, it's about Hannah's scrapbook. All right, so that's why I kind of like this question because B and D are similar but different. But that's how you want to identify what the main topic actually is and make sure it matches the text. Okay. Many intellectual histories of the Black Power movement in the 60s and 70s rely heavily on essays and other explicitly ideological works as primary sources, a tendency that can overrepresent the perspectives of a small number of thinkers, most of whom were male. Okay, that was a long sentence, so let's kind of summarize it. So, many histories, or maybe like stuff about the Black Power movement, rely on essays. And when we say explicitly ideological works, we mean like really intellectual stuff like books, essays, research papers, think that sort of thing, as primary sources. And I guess most people who wrote that were male. So we're just kind of looking at a male point of view for the Black Power movement if we just look at essays and stuff like that. Historian Ashley D. Farmer has shown that expanding the array of primary sources to encompass more types of print material, including political cartoons, advertisements, and artwork, leads to a much better understanding of the movement and the crucial and diverse roles that Black women played in shaping it. Okay, so now we have a lot of new information. So this historian is looked at like more than just essays. She looked at like cartoons and art and like ads, and she saw that we can get a much better understanding of the movement and how Black women participated in the Black Power movement. So while there are a lot of ideas, if I had to summarize, it's in like maybe one sentence. I'm talking to someone. What did you read about? I'm gonna be like, yeah, this historian, like looked at more than just like essays and stuff. She looked at like art and stuff and kind of learned a lot learned a lot more about the Black Power movement and like how Black women also played a role in this large movement. So if I had to write my own main idea, I'd be like, Farmer shows that looking at more than just essays reveals a lot about women's role in the Black Power movement, or just um, a more diverse viewpoint of the Black Power movement. Okay, so if I had to pick, okay, so let's see which one matches up the best with this main idea. And it's A. So, Farmer's methods and research have enriched the historical understanding of the Black Power movement and Black women's contributions to it. So again, here there are only like two sentences in this kind of long passage, but this is pretty much just summarizing the second sentence, right? This historian looked at stuff and she got a much better understanding, the historical understanding, and also about Black women's contributions. So that's pretty much the main idea of like what historian Ashley Farmer did. That's pretty much our main topic, right? Let's see why the other ones are wrong. So, before Farmer's research, historians had largely ignored the intellectual dimensions of the Black Power movement. Well, that's just kind of the opposite. We're saying historians only focused on the intellectual dimensions of the Black Power movement, and Farmer is focusing on like non intellectual sort of stuff. So, that's kind of the opposite of what we're saying. Um, like in this first sentence, it says many intellectual histories. So, we're saying most histories are like intellectual stuff. So this is kind of the opposite of what the passage is saying. C. Other historians of the Black Power movement have criticized Farmer's use of blah 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 That's wrong because we don't even know, it doesn't even mention anyone criticizing her, so that's just wrong. D. The figures in the Black Power movement whom historians tend to cite would have agreed with Farmer's conclusions about women's roles in the movement. This one is definitely a little confusing because it's just doesn't really have much to do with like the actual passage. We don't know about the figures who historians tend to cite. We don't know anything about them. So how are we going to know that they'd agree with Farmer's conclusions? We don't know anything about these other figures. They're not even mentioned in the passage. So that also does not really make any sense. A is the best one. It's pretty much just a summary of what the second sentence is saying. So here, while the topic might be a little harder to understand, think about it as like the main topic is, what did historian Ashley Farmer find? What did she show in her research? Basically, how we can get a broader historical understanding of the Black Power movement and how Black women played a role in it. Okay, so now we have a poem, which is probably not everyone's favorite, but poems on the SAT are usually not way too complex and deep. So let's try to break this one down. I wish I could remember the first day, first hour, first moment of your meeting me. If bright or dim the season it might be, summer or winter for all I can say. So unrecorded did it slip away. So blind was I to see and to foresee, so dull to mark the budding of my tree, that was not blossom yet for many a May. Okay, so let's just look at the first half of this poem. So it sounds like she wishes she could remember the first time she met someone. And when she says if bright or dim is season, it might be summer or winter for all I can say. She's basically just like emphasizing like it could have been summer or winter, it could have been bright or dim. Like I have no idea. Like I don't remember at all. Like I just wish I could remember it, but I just don't remember anything. Okay. So unrecorded did it slip away. Again, she just like didn't think to remember this moment. She just maybe thought it was unimportant. She was so blind to see and foresee the budding of my tree. So I think that means like she was really blind to see how important this relationship would be in the future, because she says this tree or this like relationship would not blossom for yet many a May. So maybe it took some time for this relationship to become something important in her life, but she did not realize it when she met this person. So now that it is important, she's regretting like, oh, I was so blind to realize like how important this moment is that I'm meeting you, and I just wish that I could remember it, but I don't. So we see some symbolism with like the budding of the tree. Budding of the tree is like kind of like planting the seed of this new relationship. She just doesn't remember it. So if I had to write a little main idea, I just be like, this woman just wishes she could remember the first time meeting someone who is like really important to her now. Yeah, so this person is sad because she forgot her first time meeting someone with whom she has a strong relationship with now. And we know that it's a strong relationship because of like this symbolism, this tree that did blossom eventually, but she didn't realize. Okay, so let's see which answer choice best matches up with that. Yeah. So, because the speaker did not anticipate how important a relationship would become, she cannot recall how the relationship began, which she regrets. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what I said. She didn't realize how important the relationship would be, and she just can't remember the first time meeting this person because she didn't realize that this would be an important person, and she regrets it. She's sad. Let's look at the other answer choices. So, A is a tricky one because it does say the speaker celebrates how the passage of time has strengthened a relationship that once seemed unimportant. So, this last part is actually correct. The passage of time has strengthened a relationship that she didn't realize would be important. But she's not really celebrating. This whole poem is sort of sad, sort of regretful. So it just this the speaker celebrates. She's not really celebrating anything. This isn't a happy celebratory poem. So it's this first part that makes this a bad answer and this be a better one. C talks about like an anniversary and how the speaker feels conflicted about how best to commemorate this anniversary of this relationship. This poem does not even mention a relationship. Sorry, mention an anniversary in any way. So that's just a wrong answer. We don't know anything about any anniversary. D, After years of neglecting a once valuable relationship, maybe, the speaker worries that it may be too late for her to salvage the relationship. That is just really off. The speaker just reminiscing about, oh, I wish I could remember the first time I met him, not about how do I save this relationship. That's not really here. Yeah, I wouldn't say it. I mean, maybe it might be a little confusing because she is sad, but she's not sad about the relationship falling apart. She's just sad that she can't remember the beginning of it. So that's why D is a little off, which makes B the best answer. Okay, so this is another nonfiction passage. So you're going to see there's a lot going on. We're going to break it down. Paleontologists searching for signs of life, ancient life, have found many fossilized specimens of prehistoric human ancestors, including several from the Pleistocene era discovered in a geological formation in the Minatoga Quarry in Japan. Okay, that was a lot of words. Let's break it down. So basically, paleontologists, they're just kind of like historians pretty much. They're looking for, you can study like pre-human ancestors from fossils at the Minatoga Quarry. So that's pretty much what we're saying. However, to study the emergence of the earliest multicellular organisms, so to study even earlier forms of life, like before humans or anything, before the monkeys, just the earliest forms of life, they have to turn elsewhere, such as the Ediac geological formation at Mistaken Point in Canada. A UNESCO World Heritage Site, the 146-hectare reserve contains more than 10,000 fossils that together document a critical moment in evolutionary history. Okay, so there's another site called Mistaken Point or whatever, and that's where people go to study like even earlier organisms. Okay. So if I had to, there's a lot of things going on, right? So, but if I had to do some main topic, our main topic I think is probably like our two queries. So, what is the passage saying about them? The Minatoga query is like where you can maybe find stuff about human ancestors, and the Mistaken Point place or whatever is where you can find stuff about even older life forms. And it's also pretty big based on this last sentence. So maybe that would be my main idea. People study human ancestors at M for Minatoga, but have to go to Mistaken Point if they want to study the earliest life forms. I think that's my main takeaway from it, my main summary of everything. Okay, so here the question isn't exactly what is the main idea, but it pretty much is, because saying what did the text indicate about the geological formation at Mistaken Point. And here we can see that the author is kind of drawing a comparison between the two, right? First, we're talking about Minatoga Quarry, and then we say, however, to study even older stuff, we got to go to Mistaken Point. So I would say our answer would still match up with the main idea. It's indicating that Mistaken Point has older stuff than the Minatoga Quarry. So I think that's why, if you briefly look at the answers, I would say that it's D. It contains specimens from an older time period than those found in the formation in the Minatoga Quarry. It may seem a little obvious because, like, yeah, duh, like, earliest multicellular organisms, that's, like, obviously older than humans, but that is pretty much the main point, right? It has older stuff. That's pretty much my main idea, sort of. So you can see, even though the question is a little different, my answer is pretty much sort of the same thing. Now let's see why the other ones are wrong. So A, it holds a greater number of fossils. Just stopping there, we don't know if this place has more fossils than the first place. It has a lot. 10,000 fossils is a lot, but we don't have a number for the Minatoga Quarry, and it doesn't say that it has more. We just know it has older fossils. We don't know about the number of fossils. B, it has provided evidence that the earliest human species may have emerged before the Pleistocene era. It's like unrelated. The main topic is like how it has older stuff. The main topic is not about how Mistaken Point has stuff about humans. I would say the main point is that Mistaken Point just has stuff older than humans, of a lot of maybe more different sorts of life. So B, this passage is not saying anything about the relationship between Mistaken Point and the earliest human species. So that's really off topic. C, It is widely considered by paleontologists to be the most valuable source of information about prehistoric life forms. Well, I think that's also kind of wrong because we don't know if it's the most valuable, like, ever, like, on this planet Earth. It sounds pretty important, but we don't know if it's the most important. So again, stay away from extreme answers unless it's like said pretty clearly in this text, which it's not at all. We know it's important. We don't know if it's the most valuable. So D is the most obvious and the most significant answer. All right, so we're going to start off this level with another poem. So this one was called Thoughts in a Zoo. They in their cruel traps, and we in ours, survey each other's rage, and pass the hours commiserating each other's woe, to mitigate his pain's fiery glow. Okay. Man could but little proffer in exchange, save that his cages have a larger range. That line with his lordly untamed heart has in some man his human counterpart, some lofty soul in dreams and visions wrapped, but in the stifling flesh securely trapped. Okay, so this poem is definitely more confusing than the last one, but let's just do the same thing. Let's break it down, go half by half, line by line, okay? So we're in a zoo, right? We're kind of thinking about it in a zoo. So they in their cruel traps, and we and ours, survey each other's rage and pass the hours, commiserating each other's woe. So that means like they is the animals. So the animals and their cruel traps and humans in ours, which we're not in an actual trap, right? We're kind of like maybe in the trap of society or something, sort of like that. So we're looking at each other through like the cage and we're passing the hours, commiserating each other's woes. I guess that just means kind of like sitting in each other's like sadness, kind of relating to each other because we're both kind of trapped to mitigate his own pain's fiery glow. So we're relating to the animal to feel a little less bad, to know that we're not alone. Okay? Man could but little proffer in exchange, save that his cages have a larger range. So this one is a little confusing. Um, this technically means, I'm not exactly sure what the first line might mean, but I do know that his cages have a larger range. Sort of means like the human's cage is a little bit bigger. And honestly, it might seem like, oh, human, you probably obviously have a better life than an animal, but not really. The man still has a cage, it's just a bigger cage. So when you say little proffer in exchange, I'm kind of guessing that means like he has he can't really he doesn't really have anything much better than the animal other than that he has a larger cage sort of. That lion with his lordly untamed heart has in some man his human counterpart. So like a lion or an animal has like a human counterpart. Some lofty soul in dreams and visions wrapped. So like your soul with like dreams and visions, but in the stifling flesh securely trapped. So these like souls, like your soul, which has your dreams and your visions, is kind of like stuck in your flesh or maybe like stuck in your body. So like they're not coming true. They're not becoming real life. They're just kind of maybe stuck in your head um because you're sort of in a cage, sort of. So maybe you can see the theme of like kind of like humans are kind of like trapped by society or trapped by themselves, like now their dreams and visions they can't really come true. We're kind of just like animals in the zoo. So based on the text, what challenges do humans sometimes experience? Again, it's technically asking the main idea because the entire topic of this poem, again identifying the topic is basically how humans and animals are similar because we're both sort of caged. Our like spirit is sort of caged, right? So basically, humans kind of have their own sort of trap, and their dreams and visions can't come true because of society or maybe even themselves, right? So, humans, again, with a poem, it's okay if there is a little bit of uncertainty because it's not going to be as obvious, but humans are kind of like animals because our goals and dreams are caged by our own skin. Like maybe we can't achieve them because of ourselves or just some sort of barrier, some sort of like shackle on us, right? So this is how we break down a poem. Take it line by line, but again, you don't have to understand each and every line. You don't have to do that, right? even if I looked at the bottom, the line with this human has a human counterpart. Some lofty soul and dreams and visions wrapped in stifling flesh securely trapped. Even from those last four lines, with the context that I know we're in a zoo and just kind of looking at each other, I can kind of infer that okay, we're talking about like being trapped in our souls and dreams and goals being trapped. So I don't need to understand every single line. So hopefully you guys understand how we got to this main idea, how humans are kind of caged like animals. Okay. So which one best matches up with our answer? You should take a minute and maybe see which one is the best one and why the other ones are wrong. Yeah, okay. So they have aspirations that cannot be fulfilled because of certain limitations. That's pretty much what the last four lines are talking about. Those dreams and visions, they're not coming into real life. They're kind of stuck inside the human because of certain limitations. Like that's that cage. The cage is like the limitations. Okay, let's talk about why the other ones are wrong. They cannot effectively tame certain wild animals because of a lack of compassion. Well, this poem is not about taming animals, even though we're in a zoo. It's kind of the opposite. We're saying humans can't be free, really. Even though we're not technically in a cage, we're not really free. So the topic of this thing is not taming wild animals, it's about how we're similar to animals. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense. And we're not really talking about compassion. B, they can't focus on setting attainable goals because of a lack of motivation. We were talking about goals, right? But what's the main topic? We're talking about how our dreams and visions can't come true. Not necessarily that we can't focus on setting attainable goals because of a lack of motivation. We don't know if um, the cage is a lack of motivation. That's sort of super specific. We're not sure. And we don't it's not it's less about setting attainable goals and more about how like you know what you want to do but you just can't do it because of certain limitations. So this is just very specific. We're not sure if this is exactly the human experience that the poem is talking about. C, they quickly become frustrated when faced with difficult tasks because of a lack of self-control. That also doesn't make a lot of sense for because the topic again is how our dreams can't come true because of our cages that we're in. We're not talking about how we approach difficult tasks. We're just sad that our dreams can't come true. But we don't it's not talking about overcoming difficult tasks or overcoming difficulty and lack of self-control. That's like really specific. We're just talking about some sort of cage. We don't know about a lack of self control. That doesn't make a lot of sense. That's why D is the best answer. We're just saying that we're like animals because we have dreams, but we're caged because of certain limitations, even if it's not an actual cage like the animals live in. So, again, this one's a little complex because it's a poem, but again, break it line by line. You don't have to understand every word. Um, just get the main idea, which is that people have dreams that always don't come true because we have limitations. Okay, so this is a nonfiction passage. This one is complicated because it throws around a lot of scientific words and has a lot of ideas that get a little hard to follow. But don't be derailed. You don't need to understand all of the scientific jargon. That's where they want to get you. Don't let them get you there, okay? So, in a paper about PIN, planar polarized solar cells, whatever, one of the several cell architectures designed to collect and store solar power, so basically like a solar panel, okay? These people describe a method for fabricating the cell's electronic transport layer, ETL, using a spray coating. Now, I don't know what an ETL is. I've never heard of that before, and they don't explain it in the passage, but I don't need to know that. So don't be too derailed if you don't understand that. You just need to know that there's this layer, okay, that they put on top of the solar cell using a spray coating. So probably mean they have the solar panel and they're spraying that solution onto there. That's what I'm imagining in my head. This ETL, whatever the hell it is, they're just using a spray coating and spritzing it on the solar panel. Now, conventional ETL fabrication is accomplished using a solution of nanoparticles. The process can result in a loss of up to 80% of the solution, increasing the cost of manufacturing at scale. Okay, so now we're talking about the normal way we do it, okay? It doesn't exactly detail what the normal way is, but we're just saying the normal way we do it. I don't know what solution of nanoparticles really means, but the normal way, we end up losing 80% of the solution, and that means it's increasing the cost. Manufacturing at scale means like making a lot of stuff. So the more we make, the more money we're losing when we do it because we're losing a lot of solution, okay, in this conventional way. In an issue that may be obviated by spray coating fabrication. So an issue that maybe we can be avoided using the spray coating method, which is the new method, which researchers describe as highly reproducible, concise, and practical. So it's fine. It's good. It's better. These are positive words that we're using to describe the spray coating. It works, and based on the fact that the initial problem was that we're losing so much solution the conventional way, this spray coating probably means we don't lose as much solution in the process. We're like saving solution, we're being efficient with it, and it works just fine. So I don't need to know what a perovskite solar cell is. I don't need to know what an electronic transport layer is. I just kind of need to navigate around that and see, all they're talking about is like, how do you put something else on something else, right? We're just comparing two methods, and that comparison part is actually pretty clear. They're just saying the original process, whatever it is, has a lot of solution loss. This new one doesn't. That's all you kind of need to understand. You don't actually need to understand what the science is in this passage, okay? Okay, so what does the text most strongly suggest about the conventional fabrication method or whatever? You lose a lot of solution while doing it the normal way, and it becomes wasteful and expensive the more you make. That's what we mean when we say increasing the cost of manufacturing at scale. At scale means like make more, making a lot. So that means it just gets expensive when you're doing a lot. Yeah. Okay, so now the thing about these sort of questions that the answer choices can get very confusing, which does not really help you, but we're just going to take it answer choice by answer choice here. So A, it is less suitable for manufacturing large volumes of planar solar cells, or these solar panels, than an alternative method may be. Well, I think that's true because, we're saying that this isn't as suitable as this new spray coating method. We think that's going to be better. So I like this answer, but let's just look at the other ones. It is more expensive when manufacturing at scale, that's true, than our processes for fabricating ETLs used in other solar cell structures. Well, maybe, but we don't actually know that because here we're just talking about the PIN planar perovskite solars, whatever the hell, which is one of several of these P cell architectures. But because we don't know anything about other P cell architectures, so we're not comparing them. We're just talking about the PIN planar perovskite solar cells. I don't know what that means, but we're not talking about other solar cell structures, so that's why we don't know if this is true or not. So that's why B is incorrect. C, it typically entails a greater loss of nanoparticle solution than do other established approaches for ETL fabrication. Now this one is kind of meant to trick you because it says it typically entails a greater loss of nanoparticle solution. That's true, right? We're saying that we lose a lot of solution, but we don't know about any other conventional or established approaches. Established approaches is like conventional, pretty much, things that we already do, but we only know about one conventional ETL fabrication. We're not talking about other types of already established approaches. We don't even know if there are any other. Maybe there's just only one that the passage is talking about. So we can't compare it to any other established approaches or conventional ways because we don't know if any exist in the first place. D, it is somewhat imprecise and therefore limits the potential effectiveness of PIN planar solar cells at capturing and storing solar power. Okay, well, it is a negative answer, which the passage is definitely talking negatively about the conventional process. But here, it doesn't talk about if it's imprecise. We don't know if it actually affects like the solar cells, like capabilities. We just know that when you use it, you waste a lot of solution, but it actually might be really precise anyway. Even though this is like a negative answer, this passage is not talking about conventional ETL being imprecise and like making the solar cell not work. It probably does work just fine. It's just like when we do that, we're just losing a lot of solution. That's the only complaint about ETL fabrication, conventional fabrication, that is being explained in this passage. So D, we don't know if that's true. So that just leaves A. It's less suitable because it's wasteful and expensive than an alternative method, maybe, which is right. The alternative method, the spray coating, might be a little more cost effective. So that's how we go through each one. Again, this one requires a little bit more thinking, a little more careful reading, but you don't need to understand like every science word. Here, you just needed to know that we're talking about spraying something on a solar cell. And then for one of the answer choices, you did have to be a little careful because we're only talking about one sort of perovskite architecture, which is the PIN solar architecture. Okay. This one is also a nonfiction passage. In a study of new technology adoption, they examine negative disconfirmation, which occurs when experiences fall short of one's expectations, to determine whether it could lead to positive outcomes for users. Okay, so this sentence is a little confusing because they introduced your big word, negative disconfirmation, which basically happens when, something falls short of your expectations, and determine how it could be positive. So that's a little confusing, but let's keep reading. The team focused on established users of smart home technology, which presents inherent utilization challenges but tends to attract users with high expectations, often leading to feelings of dissonance. Okay, so basically they mean smart home technology is like the specific type that they're using in their experiment, and it presents inherent utilization challenges. Pretty much means like it's often hard to use, but people who buy it usually have high expectations. So they often have feelings of dissonance, meaning like, oh, they often get disappointed by what they buy. The researchers found that many users employed cognitive mechanisms. Cognitive means like brain, by the way, so mental mechanisms to mitigate those feelings, ultimately reversing their initial sense of disappointment. So basically, that means that the users, even when they were disappointed, kind of gaslighted themselves. Like they use like mental, they just kind of really use their brain to convince themselves that actually, no, I'm not disappointed. Mitigate those feelings, or those bad feelings means like kind of alleviate those feelings, or make them better, and that ultimately reverses their initial sense of disappointment. So pretty much negative disconfirmation can have positive effects because people who get disappointed by a product that they thought would be really great, they sort of gaslight themselves into thinking that it's good. So that's pretty much what these people found out about what happens even when there's negative disconfirmation. People are still happy because they kind of just convince themselves, kind of lie to themselves, that actually I'm having a good time. And here they focus specifically on smart home technology users. This is our main idea, sort of. Okay. So if I had to see, again, these answer choices are a little longer than normal, but let's just see which one matches up the best. Okay, so C matches up the best because research suggests that users with high expectations for new technology can feel content with that technology even after experiencing negative disconfirmation. That's pretty much what we said, right? Because negative disconfirmations happens when you get disappointed by something, and they found out that these people, even when they got disappointed by their smart home technology, they kind of use their brain to make themselves think that they were actually happy. So that's pretty much exactly what happened in this experiment. Let's see why other answers are wrong. And I like this one because it highlights something that I said at the very beginning when I was talking about the strategies. If we look at A and B, they both talk about smart home technology. So, research suggests that most users of smart home technology will not achieve a feeling of satisfaction given the utilization challenges with such technology. the main thing here is that our topic is not smart home technology. It's technically here it's just technology in general. So if our answer choice is talking about users of smart home technology, that's very specific. Okay, that's not the main idea. The main idea, even though the experiment is about smart home technology users, the main idea is trying to illustrate something about like technology broadly. A is also incorrect because like we're saying that they will achieve a feeling of satisfaction even though there are utilization challenges of the technology. So this is kind of the opposite of what we're saying, and that's not addressing the main topic. B also had the same thing. So although most smart home technology is aimed at meeting or exceeding users' high expectations, those expectations in general remain poorly understood. Um, Again, this focused on smart home technology specifically, which again, it's not the best answer for that reason. Um, and it is true that it's probably aimed at meeting and exceeding people's high expectations. This experiment did not explore what expectations these users had. This experiment explored their feelings after being disappointed. So we don't really talk about what expectations these people had. I mean, they probably had good expectations, high expectations, but we're not talking about expectations. We don't know if they remain poorly understood because that's not what the experiment is addressing. We're exploring their feelings after they become disappointed, not their expectations before they buy the thing. D, although negative disconfirmation has often been studied, little is known about the cognitive mechanisms shaping users' reactions to it in the context of new technology adoption. Okay, so this one might trick some people because, yeah, it is addressing the topic negative disconfirmation and also the cognitive mechanisms that happen when you experience this. However, the main idea is that we did figure out something that when negative disconfirmation happens, you can still have a positive outcome because you kind of gaslight yourself, right? But here we're kind of emphasizing the fact that researchers don't know a lot about the cognitive mechanisms, which may be true, but that's not the point that the passage is trying to convey. The main idea is that negative disconfirmation can actually result in positive feelings. So D is not really addressing that. We're talking about how little we know. But this passage is trying to be like, okay, this is a new thing that we learned. So we don't want to, the main idea is that not that we don't know about negative disconfirmation, it's that we learned we learned something new about negative disconfirmation. We learned that even if you have high expectations and they fall short, you can have a positive experience. So keep in mind that the main topic is not smart home technology, so don't hone in on that for A and B. C is good because it just talks about new technology in general, which is kind of what happened in this first sentence in a study of new technology adoption. We're just talking about technology in general. Okay, so our last one is a fiction passage. So the following text is adapted from Maria, whatever, 1914 short story, The Vine Leaf. It is a saying in the capital of Mexico that Dr. Malso Frito carries more family secrets under his hat than any archbishop. The doctor's hat is, appropriately enough, uncommonly capacious, rising very high and sinking so low that it seems to be supported by his ears and eyebrows, and it has a furry look, as if it had been brushed the wrong way, which is perhaps what happens to it if it is ever brushed at all. When the doctor takes it off, the family secrets do not fly out like a flock of parrots, but remain nicely bottled up beneath a dome of old and highly polished ivory. Okay, so based on the text, how do the people in the capital of Mexico most likely regard Dr. Malsufrido? Okay, so this one is a little funny because it is fiction, so it's a little more abstract, right? But let's take it from the top. So basically, this doctor person, he knows a lot of family secrets, okay? And it's almost like he's hiding them all under his hat, right? So it's like all this very high and sinks so low, like on his face. So he's almost like covered by it, like his face is hidden by this like tall hat of secrets. It's imagery, but I might not totally be sure what it means. That's okay. And it has a furry look. as if brushed all the wrong way, if it is ever brushed at all. So he doesn't, I don't know, brush his eyebrows that much. So maybe he doesn't take care of himself that much, maybe. And when the doctor takes the hat off, the family secrets don't just like go everywhere. They remain nicely bottled up inside of like a dome, almost like he has like a hat inside of his hat containing all the secrets. So the secrets don't fly out. He still keeps them with him in his hat. Okay. So this one is a little bit confusing because it is a little kind of like figurative, lots of symbolism and imagery. But it's almost like he's guarding all the secrets, like he's a guardian of all these family secrets that he knows somehow. So maybe I'm thinking, people trust him, or he's kind of a gossip. Um, he's good at keeping these secrets, right? Because that dome of old and highly polished ivory, that's just keeping all the secrets in him. So um, they might think he's secretive or trustworthy because he never lets anything out of his head. So you kind of have to do some symbol analysis when you're looking at these fiction passages. So our answer choices aren't like super long this time. So A, many have come to tolerate him despite his disheveled appearance. The main idea here, the main topic here is not about his appearance, it's about how many secrets he holds, right? So A isn't really, it is a bit of a stretch. B, few feel concerned that he will divulge their confidences. So this confidences means like their trust or like the secrets that he tells them. So they're not concerned that he's going to divulge or tell other people their secrets. That's what B means. I think that's pretty right because he has a lot of secrets. He doesn't seem to like giving them out of his hat, right? Some just like how freely he discusses his own family. We don't even know if he has a family, so that's kind of irrelevant. Most would be unimpressed by him if it were not for his professional expertise. This one's a weird one. We don't even know. It doesn't talk about his professional expertise. We don't even know what he does for work. We don't know if most would be unimpressed by him. We don't even know if people are impressed by him in the first place. We just know that he has a lot of secrets. So D is also a little irrelevant. That's why B is the best one. So this one's a little deceptively simple, but the passage itself can be a little difficult to understand. I remember the first time I saw it, I was a little confused. But yeah, basically, if you just read carefully, the main topic is basically that he guards secrets really well, he keeps them bottled up, and he doesn't tell anybody. So the fiction passages are a little less common in these higher level questions, but they definitely come up. So I did want to review one. All right, so I hope this was helpful for you guys. I tried to go through as many, like a variety of problems as I could for each of the 3 levels. So just to reiterate the strategies, I won't go through all of them, but again, make sure before you go to the answer choices, you are reading it and identifying the topic and the main takeaway or the main idea by yourself, because it's easy to go to the answer choices and be like, oh, wait, should I focus on this detail in this answer choice? And it's also easy to be overwhelmed by like the amount. Sometimes like your answer choices are kind of long. So if you go there, you're going to be kind of overwhelmed. So just read it by yourself and identify the main topic, because your answer needs to have the main topic in it somewhere and the main takeaway, your 1-sentence summary of the whole thing, right? So don't get hung up on small details. Again, like science passages, you don't need to understand every single word and get hung up on like you don't need to understand all the jargon, all of like the scientific processes they might be describing. Usually you don't need to know it that deeply. If you do, it'll be written in a clear way. But again, don't get hung up or distracted or overwhelmed by all the details. Take it slow, especially when you're practicing, just really practicing going line by line, not getting hung up on things you don't understand, and trying to get at the main idea or your main big picture takeaway. All right, so thank you guys, and I will see you in the next video.